Welcome back to the Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. It's your business to be aware of what's happening in the political front, which is why I always like to get my good friend Tony Powers on the program. He does an awesome job talking about what's happening out there. His radio program, Powers to the People, an awesome source of information on the iTalk US radio network. And that's italkus.com. And as always, Tony, how are you, my friend?
Well, I'm doing great, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be with you today. It's a beautiful day here in the Southeast, heading up to the Conservative Review Convention this afternoon.
Yeah, that is, by the way, is that the publication, Conservative Review?
Yeah, that's right, conservativereview.com. They're having a convention. Mark Levin, I don't know if you are aware, but Mark Levin is their new executive editor there, and Michelle Malkin is involved now, and Daniel Horowitz, one of my regulars on the program, is the senior editor there as well. So it is a great conservative commentary spot for anybody out there who's really interested in conservative commentary. It's, I think, the gold standard.
Well, and it's really the gold standard as well in the rating of politicians. Heritage Action, ranks Marco Rubio, I think, in an A-, in his conservative rankings. I know this Conservative Review gives him a low C. And that's really real world. It has much more thorough criteria over a much broader spectrum of issues. You're the one who turned me on to it, by the way. Conservative Review is the place to go if you want to get real rankings on conservatives. Organizations like American Conservative Union that was referred to forever. John McCain has 95 with American Conservative Union lifetime rating, or a 92. Really? It's a bizarre set of criteria that they're using, and obviously, Conservative Review is much more thorough.
Oh yeah, they really are, and you can go there and check on the Liberty score of your congressman, your senator, and of course the presidential candidates as well. They have a great side-by-side comparison there, and if you want to know who's really conservative, well, conservativereview.com. Just go there and get their Liberty score, and that'll help you out a whole lot.
Absolutely. So, obviously, I don't want to sound like, or put you in a position of being Captain Obvious. I'm not even going to begin with what's the big story in your neck of the woods of Georgia and the Carolinas. We know what that is, which is the big primary. Tell us about it. What's the scene like over there?
Well, I have been to several Cruz rallies. I've been to several Trump rallies. I was up at the Tea Party thing in Myrtle Beach here about a month ago, and of course I have friends on the ground in both of these from many of the camps, different camps, who have their super PACs working on the ground, and I've been getting a whole lot of feedback from some of these guys. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. Ted Cruz is doing very well in South Carolina, better than you would think from the polls. Donald Trump, who, I don't know, he may eke it out here, but the negatives on Donald Trump are just huge. I mean, he's got a 25 to 30 percent, that like him, but then you've got the other 60 to 70% that say they would never vote for him under any circumstances.
Under any circumstances. The worst negatives of any major candidate since they've done polling, since Harry Truman, since they've done scientific polling. It's laughable.
Yeah, it is. So, how does this guy get beyond, say, 35%? I mean, you got to get to 51 if you want to be the president. So, I mean, if he can't do better than 35 with Republicans, how is he going to do in the general election? And I saw a poll this morning where he is the only one that Hillary Clinton beats. And, I found it rather amusing day before yesterday where President Obama comes out and says that Donald Trump will never be president. Of course, that was probably the best endorsement Trump could have gotten from anybody, is President Obama saying he shouldn't be president. That would probably fire up his base even more. But the thing about the Cruz folks are they are rabid. I mean, they kind of remind me of the Ron Paul of folks back in 2012. It's very interesting to watch these different campaigns and how they act. And this kind of reminds me of the old Ron Paul supporters, where you can't say anything to convince them otherwise. It's Donald Trump or nobody.
Right. Right. And yet I can understand the Ron Paul fights because they actually have an ideological basis for it. You know, when you look at Donald Trump, you know, the guy has more personality than philosophy, obviously. You know, and to be honest with you, I love Donald Trump. I could support him entirely, or at least half of him. You know, I see all these videos now. They're not short. They're like 8 minutes long. Trump versus Trump, the entire history of his positions. And we're not talking ancient history. We're talking about 5, 4, you know, at the most usually 10 years ago of how he's changed over the years. The guy's a moving target. The guy is a thermometer. He's not a thermostat. He's not an agent of change. He's a mirror of it. And he'll be whoever he wants to be once he takes the oath of office.
Oh, yeah, and he said that the other day. He came out and said, I can change into anything I need to. And so how much of what Donald Trump is saying is real, but it really doesn't matter to the people who follow him. And the number one thing when I ask them, why are you supporting Donald Trump? And it comes out, it's the first thing out of their mouths every single time. He is self-financing his campaign. He can't be bought. And that is his number one selling point. And everything else doesn't seem to matter because they say that, well, everybody else is having to use these super PACs. They're all getting money from special interests in Washington. And Donald Trump is the only one not doing it. And so I'm going with the guy who's not taking the money.
Right. And I want to tell people who live under that romance novel they've created in their mind, that the reality is if he were to do this entirely on his own, it would cost 1/5 of his entire wealth, which, by the way, the vast majority of his wealth isn't even liquid. Don't be fooled. He will need largesse from others in order to run a national campaign. He will be putting his services up for rent if not to be bought. I mean, that's just the reality. So people have this romance in their mind. National campaigns cost $2 billion, dude. You know, it costs a huge amount of money. $2 billion is what the typical national campaign now costs. That's roughly 1/5 of all of his wealth. Which, again, most of his wealth isn't liquid. So he'll be getting money.
Oh, yeah, he'll be taking money. And of course, right now he can say he's not. But he gets so much earned media. It's like nothing I've ever seen in a political campaign where you have a guy, he doesn't have to buy ads. I mean, he's buying a few ads in South Carolina. We see that happening now. Of course, we're being barraged with those. You know, it's kind of like Iowa was a few weeks ago. They're spending tens of billions of dollars trying to shoot each other in the foot. But the thing with Trump is he gets so much free earned media that, and all he has to do is tweet. I mean, you know, he's got a little 140-character thing he can do, and it's unbelievable the kind of coverage he gets just from a tweet.
Yeah, no question about it. It's frightening to think about it. And but again, you know, as you and I both know, as this gets bigger and further along, especially after the nomination, you know, he's going to be begging for money like everyone else. He's got to in order to be able and to, you know, to keep it going. You know, and I just got to keep believing he's not going to get the nomination. And you know, I'll be the first to admit, you know, there's things about Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz to me is the only real choice based on what we have to work with. Literally the only real choice. But this, you know, Ted Cruz is far from perfect. Who wants a trial lawyer, a constitutional lawyer at that, which, by the way, that's what Barack Obama was. I understand all that. He's never had to write, you know, he's never had to write the front of a check, but only got to write, you know, sign his name on the back of checks. You know, the difference between a business owner and a perpetual employee. There's things about him. But let me tell you, there's never been in a modern candidate who understands the Constitution, and I mean the Constitution, not constitutional law, but the Constitution itself, like Ted Cruz, nor has made positions about limited government and economic freedom, and who loathes the establishment, and the establishment loathes him more. And I think the establishment loathes him even more than Trump to a certain extent because they can see this wild variance with Trump that they've never seen with Ted Cruz. That things can happen to change Trump, but Cruz will not be changed. And I think the establishment loses more sleep over Cruz than they do Trump.
Oh yeah, they would much rather see Trump because they know that Trump will deal with them. I mean, that's what Trump is all about, is deals. But do we really want somebody dealing with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, like Marco Rubio did, for the Gang of Eight bill? Do we really want somebody dealing with Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan? Or do we want somebody who's going to stand on principle? And you're absolutely right. I think the establishment Republicans would rather have Hillary Clinton than they would Ted Cruz, because Ted Cruz is a threat to their very survival, the way they have been able to run the government. And that they'll stay up there in their cushy positions even if they're in the minority. So the establishment, they hate Ted Cruz, and that's why I love Ted Cruz, and I hope he ends up being the eventual nominee. And he's the one that I see that really has a path forward. He does have a great ground game and a campaign that's built to go the long haul here. And I think he's going to be our nominee. But it's kind of entertaining watching this Trump stuff.
We're going to continue our conversation, and I'd like to do a comparison of the ground games that you're seeing there in South Carolina, and with your front row view. Again, Tony Powers, he is with italkus.com. Powers to the People, my second favorite radio show after this, of course, and a great friend of this program. We're going to continue our conversation with him right after this on the Price of Business.
That makes you feel alright.